Good morning, everybody. Commissioner, if you wouldn't mind. I would usually at this point say, good morning, and everybody can take your seats. You've all taken your seats already. You're all well trained. I guess that's what happens when you're educators. You all know that you have to sit down and get ready. So, gentlemen, you're all set? The two of you all set? Guys, you're all set? Thank you. All right. So. We always start on time.
We
gonna
try.
say, like, come on.
We try.
All right.
We try.
So we're going to call the agency briefings to order. And Commissioner, you're up first.
Lucky you.
Representative Walker, seeing as it's your birthday, do you have anything to say?
Another birthday.
I know. Thank you, Douglas.
Thank you. Yes, they do.
Anything, ma'am?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm fine.
Representative Nuccio, anything to say?
Let's get this party started.
Yay.
All right, Commissioner, the floor is yours if you want to start. Just briefly go to your testimony. Talked a little bit about that.
Yep.
So.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Senator Austin. Happy birthday, Representative Walker, Senator Berthel, Representative Nuccio, and members of the Appropriations Committee. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss Governor Lamont's proposed midterm budget adjustments as they pertain to the Department of Education. I will be brief. We're thankful that the governor's midterm budget includes expansions that are reflective of some of the department's important initiatives and priorities. These investments include, as you know, $12 million in funding to support universal free breakfast for Connecticut students. This allows an additional 164,000 students in the state schools to start their day with a nutritious meal. Over $500,000 is included to provide free lunches to roughly 13,000 additional students in 118 school districts across the state by eliminating the reduced price lunch charges for low-income families. The budget includes $4.5 million to establish a statewide literacy coaching network under the Literacy Research and Reading Success Center at the department that will place trained K-3 literacy coaches in targeted schools. The governor's budget also provides $2 million in funding for the Connecticut Teacher Registered Apprenticeship Program. This will expand upon a successful COVID relief funded program designed to strengthen the teacher recruitment pipeline by funding 75 registered teacher apprentices in various districts across the state. The budget adjustments continue funding for school-based behavioral health initiatives. This funding will support continuation of a successful behavioral health pilot with 7 districts and expand that work to additional districts. The funding will also support the implementation of the department's evidence-based behavioral assessment that we have in 89 school districts. And lastly, I know the legislature is committed to understanding the impact of education investments, so we're very pleased that funding in the amount of $500,000 is included to continue the Center for Connecticut Education Research Collaborative. This research collaborative was launched with COVID relief funds and since 2021 and has allowed us to evaluate the effects of programs such as the Learner Engagement and Attendance Program, which is LEAP, high dosage tutoring, summer enrichment, the Science of Reading Masterclass, and more. So as we move forward, the department is prepared to work with you to provide whatever information that you will need to make informed decisions to ensure that our 497,764 students are prepared for learning, life, and work beyond school. Thank you very much. I am here with the team so we can answer the questions that you have.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have a couple of initial questions. One on this on the school meals program that is in front of us today. We have talked about this for a lot of years, so I don't think anybody is opposed to school meals, but I'd like to understand the parameters of what we're talking about here. So we have school meals that are afforded to districts right now from the federal government.
That's correct.
The 5 big cities, and then a slew of other communities that are much smaller, like Norwich, New London, New Britain. And often I hear that the federal government doesn't quite cover the cost of the actual school meal program that the cities or the urban areas run. Is any of the dollars that are here today going to fill in that delta to cover the entire costs of school meals in those communities, which get a preponderance from the federal government, but not enough to cover the whole thing?
So thank you very much, Senator. And John Frasinelli, who is our division director that oversees director of the program in the midst of it, I'm going to ask him to share some information based on the question that you asked.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Senator Austin, for the question. Good morning. Happy birthday.
You got to say your name.
Sorry, John Frasinelli, State Department of Education.
Thanks.
So some of the districts, or most of the districts that you're referring to, I'm assuming we're talking about Hartford, Bridgeport, Waterbury, New Haven, Stamford, those large districts, they're at an identified student percentage for free meals so that they get paid 100% of the meals they get paid from the federal government at the highest rate. It's about $4.29. So every meal that they serve is paid at the high rate. Some of the other districts that you're referring to, potentially like the Bloomfields and the Manchesters, who are part of the community eligibility provision, if they don't have a high enough identified student percentage, then there is a portion of the meals that they serve that instead of getting reimbursed at $4.29, they get reimbursed at 40 cents. So the district does have to make up that portion of the cost if they're not at a break-even status. The proposal that's in front of us for school breakfast doesn't cover school lunch, covers school breakfast, and all of those districts that I just mentioned in community eligibility provision already have to provide breakfast at no cost to all students, regardless of their eligibility. So the funding here is to make it on par with the districts who are not getting the funding for universal free breakfast so that everyone in Connecticut gets free breakfast.
So I get that part. My question is not related to who is going to get free breakfast. My question is related to, so we'll take those bigger communities, $4 and change that they get. But breakfast costs $5. I'm using that as an example. Do they get money to cover from the $4.29 that they get from the federal government up to that $5? Are they going to get 71 cents out of this to cover that additional cost?
For the community eligibility districts?
For the community eligibility districts.
No, they will not. That's
So,
not part of the package.
And are the schools that we are covering going to get $4.29, or are they going to get total cost of their school breakfast program?
So the students eligible for free already will get the $4 and change that the federal government, covering the entire cost of their what they call it their lunch. So for breakfast, it's $2.46. They will get that, anyone who's eligible for free. The federal government will also provide $2.06 for all of those students eligible for reduced price, and this provision will pay the 30 cents that the families normally have to pay up as part of their subsidy.
Right.
That makes sense. And then the students who are not eligible for reduced price or free will get free breakfast. The federal government will pay 40 cents on that meal, and then these funds will cover the balance at around $2.06.
But we will cover what the federal government has decided the cost that they are covering, but do they cover the actual cost to the districts for the meal? So that's what I'm trying to get to. Is so a district pays so much for breakfast. Let's just do breakfast. Let's forget about lunch for a minute. And a district pays so much for breakfast. Often it costs more than they're receiving in a grant from the federal government. Because we're not talking about the policy. We all like the policy. Everybody wants to have kids eat. So that's not the discussion. What I'm trying to get to is, are we actually paying, is the state paying for the total cost to each district for the program? That's what I'm trying to get to.
It's an excellent question, and the answer is no.
So can we get, I appreciate that, can we get what it would take to pay the total cost for those programs? So because we're saying we're covering school breakfast, we're not really covering it. This is, we're paying a percentage, and 40 cents on a breakfast that, I have no idea where Sprague fits into this, so I can't use them.
Do you have
They're,
kids there?
they're poor, but I don't know if they're just gonna get 40 cents or they're gonna get $2 and change. I have no idea. But some of the smaller communities, if they get 40 cents, and we're gonna go up to what the federal government gives, that still doesn't cover the delta of what the actual cost of the meals. So some of the districts are gonna come to us and said, you came up with this policy, and we're not actually getting the cost of the breakfast because you're only giving us $2 and change. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. So let me just rephrase so I understand. What you're asking for is what would it cost to reimburse the districts at their actual cost of producing those meals versus what the federal government has set for the year as what they will reimburse for that meal.
That's exactly what I want.
So that would be a challenge. We'd have to collect what the charging policies are in every school district.
Yep.
And then determine if there was a difference between that and what the federal government is providing. I will say that they're used to relying on what the federal government is going to provide in reimbursement. So they garner they make their meal patterns, they make their purchases, they get into contracts to provide those meal components so that they can live within their means, if that makes any sense.
They set their budgets on their menus.
Turn your microphone on.
They set their menus to try to make sure that they're maximizing the full
Correct.
reimbursement from the
And
feds.
and they are maximizing it, but they are not getting full reimbursement. So to be clear, we are not fully reimbursing districts for the total cost of school breakfast. We have a policy that says we're going to pay for school breakfast, but we're not paying for it. We're paying, in some cases, we're only paying 50% of what it may cost. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands. The policy is something that people want, but I want to make sure that we are actually covering the total cost of that a district is paying. So if you can't get me 100% of what it is, I would really like to understand. The 5 big districts come to us all the time, and they say, we're not getting enough money. And by the way, our school meal budget is not in line. So those 5 districts already have it. So, New Haven, Hartford, Waterbury, Stamford, Bridgeport. They should be easy to get the numbers on. And then pick 5 medium size like Norwich, New London, Manchester, New Britain, and then pick 5 small districts, Sprague, Franklin, and other districts, and so that way you're not having to go to a 200 and however many districts. I'd really like to understand what we're actually covering, and I can use that as a percentage to extrapolate out what it would cost for us to actually cover the program. So there's that. That's my first question. My second question has
Holy
to.
moly, that was the first
I
question.
know.
There's
I'm
a lot of
sorry.
questions in there.
There is. I'm trying to get this done because the school.
That word universal is not really true?
That's not true. So adult education. Adult education is really important. Representative Walker and I have been working on adult education for a long time. We believe in adult education to be fully funded. Can you get us the number that it would cost for adult education uncapped?
Yes. we
Okay,
will do that.
thank you. Representative Walker.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, happy birthday.
Thank you. So my question is about, I understand that a report came out, or the numbers came out about the student populations in all the districts, correct?
Yes.
Has that report been released yet?
So the enrollment data has been updated on our EdSite data portal.
Okay.
And I'll have Ajit Gopalakrishnan or chief performance officer that crunches those numbers for us to share some information for that. I think that's what you're asking about the enrollment. Too.
Yes.
Good morning, Representative Walker. Yes, those numbers.
Who are you?
Ajit Gopalakrishnan, Chief Performance Officer for the Department of Education.
You've been up here more than all of them, and so
Sorry.
that's okay.
The commissioner used the total enrollment number in her opening statement, so that the enrollment data were released on EdSite, I think on about 10 days ago, I think,
Okay.
roughly.
Okay.
And do you want me to summarize some of the? So essentially, we have about 10,600 fewer students reported as of October 1, fewer than in October of 24. So October 24 to October 25, about 10,600 fewer students, and that's a 2.1% single-year decline, and that's the largest single-year decline we've seen since 2007. The only other year of decline was during the COVID year, when in October there were 1 year there were fewer, greater percentage decline, and we've seen declines in student groups as well. The biggest decline was in students eligible for free meals, almost a 5% decline in a single year. However, the numbers who are eligible for free meals is still greater than in 21-22. So we still have more, but compared to last year, it's a single year decline. Same with English learners. English learners saw almost a 4% decline, about a little over 2,000 students, but we still have more English learners today than in October of 21. So, 4 years ago, we still have more English
What was the
learners.
decline for English learners?
We have over 55,000 English learners, but it's down from 57,000 last year in October of 24. So October of 24 to October of 25, we have a little over 2,000 fewer English learners.
Okay, so
And
I have
Yeah.
I'll go, because that, if we can bring that to the working group, I'd appreciate that, so we could really dig into it. But what I want to talk about is, let's just take New Haven.
yep,
New Haven's down about
almost 1,000 students.
1,000 students.
Yes.
Because of the fact that New Haven is held harmless, they're getting fully funded. If we didn't have hold harmless, how much money would they lose in their budget? Do you have an approximation?
I don't
I
have
think
that.
that one is about $13 million for New
About
Haven, but we
$13
can,
million.
right, we can bring you that information.
Okay.
For
And
every
if
office.
we weren't all held harmless, how much, do you know how much it would be for the whole state, or can we get that at the group
Yeah,
meeting?
we'll bring that information to you. I know it's over $200 million.
It's
but
over
we-
200 million if we didn't have hold harmless.
Yes.
So we are putting money in to make sure the districts still are able to operate, even though they have a smaller population of students that they're educating. Is that correct?
That's
That is
correct.
Okay, all right. That's my first question. Second question, you took 10 minutes.
I'm sensing a multitude.
My second question is about our special ed students. It's a two-prong. Number one, I'd like to know how much is fully funding of special ed? That's one. And then the second question is, how do we determine that the facilities or the programs, the nonprofits that are working with our special ed students, how do we know how they're doing? How do we evaluate the quality of work with the kids that are in special ed? Do we have that how do we do that?
So great question, and I should share as well what I know Ajit is leaving. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, just that the special education was one group that did increase
Right.
from last year to this year. So we had
Interesting.
almost a 1% increase, about 800 more students pre-K through 12
That have been
last year. to this
added to the roster of special ed.
year. Right,
correct.
so
Which-
while,
Which also means that they get more money. for the special ed student, correct?
Not always.
Dependent on whether there are high costs and there's excess costs, so it depends
Yeah.
On that front. But I do appreciate the fact that, and I'll have Brian join me, Brian Klimkowitz, who's the Director for Special Education. But your great question, Representative, because what we do on the data point when we talk about attendance, our outcomes, we do disaggregate our data that we have on EdSite. So we disaggregate and we see how our students with disabilities are indeed doing. So that is public, transparent, and reported. So if we're talking about attendance, we disaggregate the data for students with special needs so we can see what their attendance look like as well. We look at graduation rates, and Brian can tell us more of what we look at. So we do that for all our learner groups, including our students with disabilities.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning, everyone. Brian Klimkowitz, Special Education Division Director. As the Commissioner mentioned, we do track and monitor our progress for students who attend approved private special education programs the same way that we do for students who attend our public schools. So they're in our Connecticut special education data systems. We're tracking and monitoring their IEP compliance, annual reviews, 3-year reevaluations, any referrals that may take place, prior to placement. All those are tracked and monitored. We do break out data related to restraint and seclusion, emergency use of for students in those programs as well, and those are documented in our annual reports. With regard to achievement data, graduation and dropout, and student performance on our state assessments, those data are reported in conjunction with their sending town. So if I'm a school district in Hartford, a student attends an approved private special education school in a different town or city or location, those data are reported along with Hartford Public Schools within their annual performance report. So those students, because of the transient nature of students entering programs, exit programs, returning back to their neighborhood schools, the districts of responsibility, that's where those data are included.
So I'll follow up some because I'm really trying to understand special ed and who is involved in the evaluation. How do we evaluate? Are we providing the parents with the? I really am trying to unwind that. But I just, when you said that there are 800 more that are going into that, I wonder. There's got to be something going on in the evaluation or the determination that these children need more services. And we're out of the COVID dome, so now we're in the classroom. I mean, we are in the classroom. We're not on TVs anymore. We're in the classroom. So is the system or the process that we are trying to educate them, is that effective enough for the kids to be successful and to make achievements? Or do we need to rethink those the way we're doing the classroom education? But I'll stop here. And the number of kids that are fewer, that the 10,000 less, are those in public schools? All those kids are in public schools. The
when you
10,000 less that you counted.
that we don't have
Yes.
reported now in public schools.
Right. So the total number was public school students.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
and that's 10,600 fewer in the public schools.
That's
Thank
correct.
you, Madam Chair.
And you also asked, Representative, and I know Jessica Bernetti, our Chief of Fiscal Services, but we can provide to you as well. You asked about fully funding excess costs and what that would be. I think we have
Yes.
that number as well that we can share with you.
Oh, what is that number?
Jessica?
We should just get a bunch of chairs.
Want to make sure you have
Well, we get to
accurate
see
information.
all the people that we talk to on the phone.
Good morning. I'm Jessica Bernetti. I'm the Chief of Fiscal Administrative Services for SD.
Good morning.
To fully fund excess costs for fiscal year '27, we're estimating it to come to about $361 million. So that's a shortfall of $139 million.
A shortfall of, I'm sorry.
139.
Oh, we're short 139. Okay, I was like, Okay, so 361 is how much we had to fully fund it.
If you
and-
took, right.
And we are 169 short?
139.
139.
Because I thought we were at 241 million now.
We're at 221.
131, I get the numbers wrong, sorry.
361 to fully fund. We're at 221 and the appropriation, and the shortfall would be 139.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be back.
Representative Nuccio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kind of hopping all over. I'm glad everybody's asking some of the questions that I have. The first question that I would like to ask is in regard to the magnet school funding. And that there relies on a new piece of legislation that we haven't passed yet, which would overturn what we just recently passed, which gave relief to the towns for the magnet school funding, which said they could only charge a certain amount. It appears that this new piece of legislation is going to then allow the magnet schools to increase their tuition charged every 2 years based on CPI. So that $12 million cut that would be directly taking away from the prior legislation that we passed to fund this at the state level. Is that correct?
I don't believe that is accurate, but why don't I have Robin join me? Robin is our school choice program director, and she's really knee-deep in this piece of legislation and change. So I think, Robin, could you introduce yourself? Yes.
Good morning. I'm Robin Cecier, Director of School Choice. Yeah, the magnet legislation gets a little complicated. In last year's Public Act, there was the $12 million for RESCs and college-affiliated magnet operators to share in the $12 million based upon enrollment. That comes out of fiscal year 27, and instead what is in the governor's bill is a sustainability plan around shifting tuition to align with an inflation index. So it's still capped at that 58%. It starts in fiscal year 28. So fiscal year 27 stays as is. Starting in fiscal year 28 for 2-year increments, the operators, those RESC and college-affiliated operators, would be able to apply that inflation index. So, for example, if you based it on where we are now, it would be about a 6% increase in fiscal year 28, and that would stay stable for fiscal year 29. So just to give you an example, that helps me understand the impact of it. Say an average tuition pre-58% cap, fiscal year 24 was $6,500. Now that looks like at the 58% cap, just about $3,800 per pupil. With that inflation index, if you're thinking around a 6%, it would be about $4,000 per pupil. So it's a gradual increase to account for inflation over 2-year increments. And that is offset in terms of district support in the fact that they continue to receive their ECS, notwithstanding those students are not in their district. So it's trying to balance that without having that just one-time injection of funding.
So it's relying on the double funding of like the ECS going to the town.
Yes,
So-
that balance.
So, but the towns would expect to see an increase, and then the state share would also increase. So I guess if there's increases, why are we seeing a $12 million reduction this year?
So that would be in fiscal year 27. Like I said, that was just a one-time sort of influx of funding. The state funding would stay constant around what the operating grant looked like, but that 58% cap would stay in place. It would just be that marginal sort of on pace with inflation in those 2-year increments. So that
Okay.
would be.
So I
that
think what I'm hearing is the 26 number of the 12 million was a one-time uptick. This is taking it back down. It is not going to continue. We are going to have this other legislation that continues the cap at 58% for the towns, but it will be adjusted every 2 years at CPI-U, which would mean, like in this case, a 6% increase for the towns and for what the state is putting in to pay for the other 42%. Is that correct?
No, that stays constant, that 42%.
So-
But yeah, it would.
So the state's not paying more to them, only the town is?
Yeah, so that 42% stays in place on the operating grant. That 58% stays constant. What amount will change? If it came to a hold harmless, then that balance, because it does account for if the operator received more based upon the prior fiscal year, then that higher amount would be paid versus that straight operating grant calculation.
Okay, so now you got me wound up again.
Sorry.
So again, see.
I'm confused.
Oh, okay, so, yeah, all right, so the piece that I think I'm stuck on now, I get the 12, right?
Okay.
What I think I'm stuck on now is with the legislation that capped towns at 58%, right? So you're saying the total amount of what it costs to educate that child goes from $1,000 to $1,060 because it's the 6%, right? Okay, that's the total cost. The town would have to continue to pay 58% of that increased cost, right? So the balance of the 42 is being paid by the state, correct?
Right, in the operating grant.
So the state is going to have to also increase their operating grant by that CPI amount also,
Within
correct?
that 48% off of the total, yes,
Okay.
because of the hold harmless.
So it would be an increase on both the state side and the town side, but it would definitely be an increase on the town side, which this is all new legislation that conflicts with what we priorly passed with the amount. Okay, all right, I think I got that. My next question is in regard to the grants, the legislative grants into a separate account. I noticed one of the items that is put into reduced legislative grants is the Family Resource Center. I'm not sure I would necessarily classify family resource centers as legislatively driven, but can you tell me how that managed to get swept up in here as a legislative ask and not as an actual program that is advocated and pushed hardly, that's not a good word, strongly, by SDE?
So those, as you know, the legislative directed funds, and you talked to OPM about all of those, and we can share with you that list,
I
Representative.
would appreciate that, please.
And
Thank
so
you.
we'll bring that to you so you can see the array
Mm-hmm.
of all the programs that's a part of that.
Okay, but I guess my question is really, how is Family Resource Centers wrapped up as a legislatively driven grant and not as a program that is supported by SDE? So outside of, how does it get moved into this legislative grant area that's being reduced?
Who put it there? Okay. Well, our budget, as you know, is prepared
Yeah.
by, our OPM and all of us, working together on it. And so I think what you're asking, Representative, we should take a look at that particular program
Yes.
to see its fit where it
Okay.
is. And we will certainly do that.
And I will have more if anybody else doesn't ask them, Kathy.
Senator McCrory, followed by Representative Leeper.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. I
Only
want-
get two at a time.
Only get two?
That's it.
Then you gotta come back,
gotta
like
come
the
back.
rest of us, please.
So
Okay,
don't think you're gonna get an hour.
okay, all right, I go with my two. The $4,500 for the new program, I'm assuming my question is, the $44.5 million we're utilizing from the Mississippi approach to providing quality reading education. Now, everybody, I don't know,
Right.
I know about it. Is this a continuation of the Right to Read program, or is this a new policy that's coming down the pipe that we're gonna spend $4.5 million on for this new, I'm asking, is it a new policy around early reading?
Thank you very much, McCrory. Good to see you,
Good.
Senator. And so this is really adding to the work that we've been doing. We recognize to get the outcomes that we're looking for, that it's not a one and done or disparate kinds of policies. So we've done the curriculum models and programs. That has been, that is moving forward. We've done the master class where we have training. So this is yet another tool that we're adding to make sure that we can augment the gains that we're getting. So we want to make sure there's high quality curriculum. We've done that. Now we want to make sure that there's really effective implementation, and the way you do that is to provide some coaches to really support teachers to make sure that that instruction, the curriculum and instruction, is strong and is happening at a classroom to get us the outcomes that we're looking for.
Right, and I understand that. So my question, if you know, I know about the Mississippi program. It took years to get them to where they are. It was a financial investment over time. So again, I hope this is not the second question. I hope this is not just a one-time $4.5 million shot to try to get our kids up to reading where we want. If we want to follow the Mississippi model, it took years of investment. So I'm assuming as we move forward that something like this is going to be in the budget going forward every year if we really want to move our children to where what Mississippi did. That's not a question. That's my comment. We can talk about that further when we get to the working group. The other question I had in regards to the magnet school funding, it was our policy position that we wanted to eliminate tuition payments from school districts. That was a goal of ours over time. But what I'm hearing now is in the policy you have before us, this gives school districts the ability to continue to ask for, pay for tuition payments as we move forward. And I thought that was inconsistent with what the policy we wanted to move as when we funding these magnet schools, because they are state schools and the states are required to pay for them. Why are we moving away from the policy that we want to do to eliminate quote-unquote competition by requiring school districts to pay tuition moving forward?
So, Senator, that's a great question. And I think a part of this is really around sustainability, because we've heard also from our magnet school operators that there's the need to continue to look at the funding structure. And so this is one way of thinking about the funding structure to go back and to do that. So more conversations I'm sure that we will continue to have around that, but we really need to think about sustainability as a big part of the funding structure moving forward.
I concur. That's a conversation we need to have around ECS the whole 9 yards, because I mean, requiring to pay tuition is not what we're looking to do, and just removing $12 million from our operating grant that the state is required to pay for is something that I don't concur with. And I guess my last question would be.
You already went to.
Oh, I did?
Yeah. As you said,
Yep.
this is my
All
second
right,
question.
I asked a question.
Two
All right,
seconds.
all right,
You
all
can
right,
come
no
back.
problem.
You can come back.
No
You're not
problem.
going
Okay.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Woo. And I'm sorry I sound like this. I've been trying to give some space to my colleagues so my germs can stay with me. I'll just start by saying thank you for the additional funding into the literacy instruction, because I know you're going to hear a lot from us about, the things we don't like. So I'll just say thanks. Thanks also for the additional funding into the registered apprenticeship program for teachers. I think that's really important. And also for the school-based behavioral health funding. So thank you for those increases. Since we've been on the tuition to magnets, I will just also reiterate, I'm very concerned about where this 12 million is coming from. I don't feel like that was quite clear where this cut is coming from, and the allowable tuition increase doesn't offset the cut that our magnets are experiencing, and they've been flat funded pretty much for a really long time. And we know that our educational expenses are accelerating far faster than inflation generally. If we look at healthcare and transportation alone, year over year, those are double-digit increases. So inflation surely isn't adjusting for that. And when we think about which communities are allowed to have choice programs, there are communities that are already experiencing the greatest need. So we really have like a robbing Peter to pay Paul situation for those sending districts that host magnets, and then also the magnets are not getting the funding they need to be the vibrant choice programs that they're advertised. So I worry deeply about that $12 million cut. And so I've expressed that. I don't think there's any additional sort of questions you guys can answer unless anyone wants to respond to that.
So the one thing I do want to add, that magnet school funding is something that we're certainly looking at as well. I'm just going to ask Robin just briefly to share with us a study that we're actually doing. I want you to be aware of that, because I think it's important that as we continue to look at the structure, and there's also the Blue Ribbon Commission that the governor will be deploying that will get us to look comprehensively and extensively at education funding, but specifically around magnet. Just ask Robin to share with you a little bit about a study that we're actually doing.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. So about around the October time, I'm sorry, I'm Robin Cecere, Director of School Choice. Around October, we commissioned a study with an educational organization called Education Northwest. It is an organization that looks at desegregation initiatives and school choice options and have expertise in sort of the broad scope of what it means to operate a system around school choice. And one of the experts that is part of the primary team is a gentleman named Dr. Matthew Kelly, who's out of University of Washington. And his sole purpose and one of the major research questions is fiscal funding around school choice. How do we look at that in the long term around sustainability? So that's something that we know has been a challenge, our structure. How do we ensure that the magnets are healthy and districts are healthy and that's all balanced? And we wanted to look at how this works on a national level. We've been battling it or challenged with it for many years, trying to do different tweaks and look at it in different ways. But it is opportunity to harness what other districts and states are doing, and that's where he brings in that expertise. So we expect a final report around December of this year. So that work is moving along quickly, and they're doing very extensive and comprehensive analyses of our entire system, and look forward to what that yields, not only in the fiscal context, but in the broader context.
I appreciate that. I'll just add, as we have declining enrollment across the state, and we have more and more very small districts, it's, in my opinion, incredibly important that we hold up our RESCs to be a viable option if it's going to come to school consolidation for some regions or opportunities for districts to work together because of looking at sustainability and fiscal realities that are likely to only become more challenged in coming years. So if we don't have our RESCs with a very sturdy foundation, I think we'll be in a much worse position when those tougher decisions are before us. So I just add that, but I'm very happy to hear you're studying this. Thank you. And then my second question, back to school meals. I think also sort of to support what the chairwoman was saying, between the difference between what we know is a federal program that falls far short of the cost of feeding our kids high quality meals. If you spend any time with students, the first thing they'll tell you is the food's terrible. And what I actually would love, if you're going to be doing any outreach to districts, is getting their feedback on what would a high quality meal program cost? Because I think you're right that districts are doing their very best to provide breakfast for the $2 they get per kid. I think that's roughly what it is, something like that. And breakfast is a little easier to do than lunch for sure, but what would it cost for our districts to prepare and provide meals that kids actually want to eat that are nutritious? And I think that delta would be really interesting. If you're going to be reaching out to districts, I would love for some information to be collected on that as well. You're welcome to respond if you have thoughts on it, but please don't feel like you have to. I know this is a little outside of just the numbers.
No, it's a great point, and I appreciate the question. So I think added to that is that the more students who participate in breakfast, the more income comes into the program and the more purchasing power they have to buy higher quality items, including schools are doing a yeoman's work about purchasing local. So this is local investments into local businesses and local farmers to improve the quality of the meals.
And I should have also said that I know our districts are doing their very best with a program that really has also not kept up with the cost of inflation and especially rising grocery costs, and they're doing their very best. So I would love to know what it would look like for us to better support their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Leeper, I hope you're not encouraging. I've done the school consolidation discussion for admin positions, but you better add in transportation for kids that would be going 2 hours a day, because right now they're going an hour a day of transportation from their home. When you're trying to do school consolidation for small rural communities, you're going to have those kids going 2 hours one way, 2 hours home. So that is 4 hours of transportation that the schools would have to pay that would be significantly more expensive than they have right now. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your work and the increases that we've seen in your proposed budget. So I want to just align my remarks with Representative Lieber, but also I have a question regarding before and after school programs and how we're addressing those at this point in time. And if you don't have the answer to that now, I'll be glad to talk to you offline, but I thank you for your work.
Thank you very much, Representative. And we can bring to you a listing of all the before and after school programs that we're funding, both with federal funds and also with state funds, so you can have that list available.
Also, the criteria for the funding, because it is a grant program, and we used to get it, and now we seem to be missing out on the grant, and I'd like to know what the standards are. So, thank you so much.
Will do.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for the first time? No. So I want to continue to move along. So I worked on the Office of Dyslexia. They have no money for what I would call OE, and whenever they try to get OE from other OE line items, they're often shut down. So I am interested in giving some flexibility on these dollars to allow them to be used for staff and OE. I want to just let you know about that. And I would point out that there are two types of children that end up in corrections that are identified as special needs. Those two are autism and dyslexia, that they were not identified in schools as having those issues for whatever the reason is. Now, I have an opinion that a lot of schools don't like to identify kids that have special education needs because of the expense of them. So when they end up in corrections and we're identifying them as dyslexic or autistic, we probably should have been able to identify them in their local school districts. Representative Walker and I have talked about this before, requiring the school districts these children to be, if we're going to give them, and as we should, their special education, that we should find out why. Why were they not identified earlier? Why in what schools? So that we could, if it's because they're not getting enough funding, which I think is something that's true, I think that's something that we should do. So I am going to provide some flexibility here, more dollars if necessary, and I just want to let you know that. And then my second question, relative to relative to the literacy coaches, I am not a fan of us having literacy coaches thrown in if it's not going to make any difference. And I am not a fan of us having someone show up at school A and then go on to school B, then go on to school J, and nobody comes back for 2 years to school A and B. And if the teachers, my understanding is these literacy coaches are not going to work with the children, they're going to work with the staff. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I'm concerned that, because we have literacy coaches in the program right now, right? We have literacy coaches that are around right now.
So the person coming to the table is our director of Center on Literacy, who is Dr. Hickey, that I just really want to make sure that we're understanding what we're talking about for these coaches, what we've done before, and how we're elevating this, because it really is important. We do professional development, and you kind of do that. People come in, they get their learning and walk away. How do you make sure that they can go back in and implement the knowledge that was received? And that is the concept of these literacy coaches, and we have examples of what's done. And I should also say, Senator, one of the reasons that we have the research collaborative that we've funded and is so we can know outcomes. how are we doing and what is the outcome that we're getting on our investments that we're making. This will also be evaluated. So we can tell you what has happened with the master class that we've done. The same would be true here, that I totally agree with you. It's not just about, sprinkling a little fairy dust or something we're
Right.
doing and not knowing what's happening. We're committed to this. We want to see and continue to accelerate the pace of improvements that we're seeing right now, and that is really important. So let me just ask Dr. Hickey to introduce herself and just say a little bit more about the coaching concept that we're talking about.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Your name.
Melissa. My name is Dr. Melissa Hickey. I am the director of the Center for Literacy Research and Reading Success. That was established in 2021. So we've been part of the Right to Read, as Senator McQuarrie did mention. So the coaches, we have had coaches through our Connecticut literacy model from Hill for Literacy. So that's a contract that we have with UConn and a partnership that has existed prior to me coming to the board, to the agency. We would really like to expand that and have districts, approximately, we're hoping for 50 districts, to have coaches who come in and actually do coaching cycles with individual teachers, meaning they meet with teachers, they go over data, they support the leaders as well in understanding the needs of a literacy coach, meaning that a literacy coach would not do scheduling, would not be a substitute, would not be someone who does the bus duty and the lunch duties and things like that. They would go in and they would support teachers, bringing to life, as our commissioner said, the professional learning. We have provided free professional learning through the generosity of the legislators, $25 million previously from ARPA funds. We've had 95% of our districts participate in that free, no cost to them professional learning, as well as, grants, ARPA and ARP-ESSER grants, where 91% of our districts did take advantage of those ARPA grants. With all this was professional learning, not only the master class, but also leadership, where once again, 95% of our districts went through that training about what does it look like? What is the science of reading? What is this? This would really be building that infrastructure for that scalable growth, supporting the classroom impact. We've heard from districts and charter schools already the impact of what they've done by implementing the mandated curriculum models and programs. They have seen student growth not only in phonics, which so often people think, oh, the science of reading is just phonics. It's not. It's also that comprehension and knowledge. Was that for me?
No.
No, that's sorry.
No, it's not a bell.
You're not on 3 minutes.
Let's talk about the coaches.
Okay, so taking all of this into the classroom and really supporting the teachers with science of reading, with their programs and those instructional moves.
So I get it, but we had $12 million that was in for magnet schools last year. We said we're going to support our magnet schools, but we're not going to support them this year. We took that away after we said we were going to do it, and we moved that to $12 million for school meals and $12 million for this literacy coach concept. So I'm a little concerned on our actual follow through on some of this, and I'm not seeing the result in actual scores for kids with reading after we've spent the money that we've had. So if you can send that to me, I don't need it right now because we're getting closer and closer to our time frame with you, and I know that you have a busy day. But I would like to see, after the 25 million that we put in there, how many schools actually that took advantage of this, those reading scores for children? What was the difference? Was there what was the differential there? I'd like to have that. So Representative Belinsky, you're up. For the
Thank you,
first,
Madam Chair. And I just want to acknowledge Madam Chair's commitment to special education and express my gratitude. But I do have questions for our partners at SDE. One of them is I wasn't planning to speak about, so I'm gonna take two topics and limit it to that, Madam Chair. We just had a conversation about the Right to Read program, and it was immediately referred to, as the mandated program to use the required curriculum. I don't know how many people recall this, but we had a protracted session-long conversation, disagreement about mandates and mandating a program rather than allowing our school districts who know our students in our communities best and far better than anybody in Hartford does. We in my particular constituency, we have a reading program and have had a reading program for far longer than Right to Read, and it works very, very well. So our reading proficiency is quite good. I am an advocate of not mandating, but recommending, but I'm also a tremendous supporter of when we have a problem, we find who has that problem solved, and we use that as something of a best practice. But we literally fought for months to not have to invest millions of dollars in an out-of-the-box literacy program, when in fact we had no need to change course because our Board of Education and our superintendent of schools, they were way out in front of this. So it's less of a question and more of a procedural suggestion that we take our foot off the mandate pedal from time to time, stop, smell the roses, see what's working, and learn from that before we mandate everybody, shift gears. So thank you for indulging me on that, Madam Chair. My second topic is a question. We launched the Office of Dyslexia and Reading Disabilities now 4 years ago. It was given a significant appropriation of seed money and a program director with very, very specialized qualifications was brought in to lead that office, and that led to some degree of misunderstanding about what her mission was internally within SDE. And she ended up resigning, which was a heartbreaking thing because she was made to feel unwelcome. Here we are, it's 2026, we're working on a budget. And as Madam Chair has already said, investing in special education, ladies and gentlemen, that is the original equity. You've heard me say this. It's been 4 years since I used to get on my soapbox and talk about special education is the original equity. Well, what happened to the seed money? Because upon resignation of the program chief, we completely lost our path forward. And my question is, yes, we're trying to get ourselves reestablished and put ourselves back on track to serve the 1 out of 5 children in the state of Connecticut in our elementary schools that quietly have dyslexia. And we want to serve them before they fall behind. And that was the whole idea. And it never launched, it never implemented. So my granular question is, what happened to the seed money? What did we spend it on? And why is there nothing to show for it Because if we don't learn something from that when we appropriate this year, we're going to do it with the absolute best intentions. But there's no guarantee that it's actually going to roll out any better than it did 4 years ago. Makes me tremendously uncomfortable, and it actually breaks my heart because we made some pretty hefty promises to not allow kids in the dyslexic community, and it 1 in 5 fall behind, and nothing's changed at school level at this point. So please, I have asked privately for an accounting of where the original seed money went. I would like to see that. But also I'd like to have, perhaps the commissioner, perhaps, Mr. Klimowitz, speak to us about, where do we go from here and what's happening? Where's the hiring process? Where's the oversight? That's a very long question. Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to ask it.
Representative Belinsky, would it be okay if they brought that to the working group, because we're now at the hour? So I'm wondering if that's okay with you, and I agree with your statement.
Yes, absolutely. I'm frustrated by not having that information. And as long as it's on the public record of the working group, we welcome the information. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Walker, followed by Representative Nuccio, followed by Senator McCrory.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I was looking through some of these reductions in your budget, and the thing that was very striking to me is the $2 million that was taken out of the Aspiring Educators Scholarship Fund. However, then I look over, it's funny how these numbers kind of go back and forth. There's a talent development for $2 million. Lo and behold, what is that? Oh my goodness, that's kind of like the rest and the magnet schools. And so I'm just going to assume that what I think is not accurate, but the thing that makes me more concerned in that, I say this not to you guys, because I'm going to be honest, real honest. I know you didn't write this budget because this does not reflect all the things that we should be, and you guys have advocated for this all along. But for the persons that thought this was a great idea to do this, I feel that we're playing to the diversity and the concerns about some of the concerns that might be. No. I'm trying. I got to do it quickly because Kathy's going to poke me in a minute. I'm seeing diversity and fear of focusing on, quote, minority issues and things like that as part of the things that are being carved out with the various grants. Because, the Family Resource Center, that is not a legislative situation, and we did not choose it. That was a mission that we did with the schools all around. It wasn't just legislators. And Connecticut Alliance for Boys and Girls Clubs, that is not a legislature. That's a core group of programs that are all around the state. And then there's another $3 million, which they didn't bother breaking out, of various grants which we need to have sort of looked at, and then the LEAP program and Bridges to Success. I mean, if I go through those items that they pulled out as the various grants, I feel that it's identifying a race or a culture that they say we can have a reduction in. After-school programming is another. So there was not a question, there was a statement, but I had to say it because as I look through the various grants issues, I think we're becoming afraid to say that we believe in diversity. We believe in people's choice and people's decisions. And I hope we can go back to just educating people. So again, Commissioner, I know you cannot say a word, and the other commissioner after you will not be able to say a word. Everybody's got tight lips. But I wish that the people who crafted this budget would have the honest conversations. We can have it behind closed doors, but I'm not going to run from who we are. I'm going to make sure that we continue the funding for the programs that you guys know work and you know that are important. So don't smile, don't say anything. Thanks.
Representative Nuccio.
Thank you. So I'm doing a little bit of digging into all the budgets this year, kind of forensic kind of stuff. But if you could also bring to the meeting, I am asking for descriptions of the programs of all of your line items that are here, a high-level description, who is being served by that, and what metrics we're using to judge success of those line items. And also, we've been asking everybody to bring out a breakout for all of the other expenses, so we know exactly what's in the OE, and we can look at that to see if it needs to be more granular. So if you can bring those, I'll have a bunch of other questions for the working session. Thank you.
Will do.
They don't have time, they don't have the staff.
All set? Senator McCrory,
Yep.
you're going to
So-
wrap us up because
Yep.
no more questions after this from anybody?
Okay, quick question. Can you, I just don't on the current services for adjusting for special education items, everyone's asking for more money for special education, and here we're reducing it by $7.3 million, and I can't, maybe I don't understand what, how, where, but give me an explanation for that reduction in special education services, where everyone's begging for more money.
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. It is a little bit confusing because I do understand that everybody's asking for more money for special education. It's actually, it looks worse than it is, if I can sort of.
Looks for what?
It looks worse than it is. When we got the budget, when the biennial budget was set to, last year, there was money put into OE for special education services for specific line items. And we were actually, I don't like to say this out loud, but we were over appropriated for those line items. There were specific tasks
Specific line items.
associated for special education within OE. And we were given too much money
Okay.
for those specific line items. So all this is doing is backing out the extra money we were given to be in line with just the specific line items that were set in place for fiscal year 27.
Okay.
So it's not actually a reduction to anything. It's just bringing us back in line with the
Okay.
the items that were specified for fiscal year
So
27.
bring that, I want to know what line items that you're over budgeted for. When we in the working group, not now.
Okay.
When we had a working group, so I want to look at,
Yeah, of course. There were only I think 5 initiatives in fiscal year 27 that we were funded for, and we literally were just given more money than we
Okay, just
needed.
bring that
Yep.
information to working group. My last question
Of course.
is, I just want to go back to the breakfast program. It was stated that we get $2.40 for a breakfast program, but that, Senator Austin said, but that doesn't necessarily cover the full cost of the program. Give me an example in one school district where, what's the real true cost of a breakfast program? Because if it's more than $2.40, my next there is, does that explain why we had differences in school districts, what they're providing school children for breakfast or even lunch down the road? Because I've been in school districts and I saw some stuff in breakfast programs and I wouldn't want to eat that stuff. But then I went in other school districts and I'd be like, whoa, you got varieties over here. This is outstanding. So I need to know what is the cost and why there's such a differential. I could probably explain myself because it'd be associated with the cost and what's provided at one school district as opposed to another.
It has to do with the food that's being provided. So there's obviously a cost that they're paying to, there's an actual expenditure related to what they're bringing in. So some districts are bringing in items that are, higher quality, higher cost. So the cost that the cost of the items are more than what they're being reimbursed for. Some districts have to stay closer to that $2 and change range because they don't have any additional funds to cover the difference.
Okay, I got you. All right, yeah, I want to stay time. So basically, some districts are just spending $2.40 because that's what they can not can they afford. That's what they're gonna get. And some school districts are taking that $2.40 and then adding another $3 to it, and now you got a real meal. Is that what's going on?
I wouldn't necessarily real meal because they have
Nah, I'll say
standards, no, by which they have to follow. But you're correct in that there's constant pull and tug, right, around what it is that you're offering, and that you're offering meals that children will eat. Also going against the culture and what it is that we actually advertise to kids as to what it is that they need to eat. So it's a really balancing game that is out there, Senator. But it isn't really important. I know the work, John Fasanelli here, the work that they do with their districts and the work that they do to make sure that meals are indeed ones that kids will actually eat. Because we know that it meet nutritional standards, but you only impact the body if it's eaten. And so we know that's really important that we are doing that.
And listen, I understand standards. I understand there's a difference between a pack of ketchup and a tomato. And some school districts getting a pack of ketchup and some getting a real tomato. All right, thank you.
And I would just offer, if I may, take a moment. When you've got districts like the Hartford district, they're serving 20,000 lunches a day. When you're serving 20,000 lunches and 12,000 breakfasts every day, you have buying power. You can force your producers to make products to reformulate products so that they're more acceptable to those students. Smaller districts have a harder time because they don't have that kind of buying power.
That's the total opposite, because the school district in Harvard is the one that's serving the ketchup in the package, and the other school districts are not as logical are the ones that serving tomatoes.
So thank you. I'm gonna step in. And then when you come to the working group, if you can give us an idea on the meals, and then let us know if they're serving whole milk now. That's it. Done.
From Connecticut cows?
From Connecticut cows, please. So we're all set, Commissioner. Thank you very much for
Thank
coming.
you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you.
Up next, we have the Office of Early Childhood.
We didn't even ask about the mental health grant.
Commissioner, the floor is yours. So if you want to just go over a little bit of what you did, you don't have to read your testimony, just give us a high level, and then we'll move on.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Senator Austin, Representative Walker, Senator Summers, Representative Nuccio, and distinguished members of the Appropriations Committee. I am Elena Chuworthy, Interim Commissioner here at the Office of Early Childhood, or otherwise known as the OEC. I'm here to testify in support of the governor's proposed budget. The governor and state legislature continue to demonstrate the state's ongoing investment and commitment to our youngest children. This past June, Governor Lamont and state legislative leaders passed Public Act 25-93 to establish the Early Childhood Education Endowment, a long-term sustainable funding strategy aimed at creating a robust early childhood system that can build and continually increase the opportunities for young children and families across our state. Seeded with $300 million and with specified spend controls, this transformative investment really builds on the recommendations of the governor's Blue Ribbon panel. It included voices from across the industry and field, including parents, providers, philanthropy, businesses, and government, to create a strategic roadmap and shared vision to guide ongoing investments. The governor's midterm budget adjustment adds to these investments by including $2.4 million for OEC, and $1.6 million for the Department of Social Services to raise payment rates with a tiered rate approach for Connecticut's Birth to 3 system. This additional funding would add the state to increase rates consistent with the rate study and cost analysis that was completed in 2023. Increasing rates for birth to 3 with this tiered model approach is needed to stabilize the birth to 3 system, improve workforce recruitment and retention, and the overall supports and qualities for families. This really demonstrates the commitment to a strong early childhood system. The budget adjustments also makes reductions and reallocations, including renaming of the Connecticut Nurturing Families Network to the Connecticut Home Visiting System, reducing and transferring one legislatively directed fund, and transferring one position from the Office of Health Strategies. I want to thank the Appropriations Committee for your ongoing commitment and our work together, and look forward to questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I see that we have a cut of 75,000 for various grants, but it doesn't list the various grants. Can you bring those that list of the grants that are in this new line item and the cuts that happened relative to that?
Sure. Yep, it is just one grant for Waterford Upstart. It's a reduction of 20% over 2 years.
So the Waterford Upstart is where?
Waterford Upstart.
Because it's not in Waterford, right?
It is an online program or software that is a support for children and families to work on their math and science and language skills. And so that is the program and approach that is funded through that grant.
And again, I know it's kind of silly, but we have a town called Waterford. Mm-hmm. So when a lot of people hear Waterford Upstart, they're thinking it's in the town of Waterford, but it is not in the town of Waterford.
Correct. We'll get you more information, however, as to what it is and more details.
Want
Absolutely.
Public to sort of know. It's not in the town of Waterford. It's not going to one person
Correct.
or one area.
Yes.
All right. So, so we put in, we, the legislature, supported a side fund of $300 million, give or take, right? And we can spend 10% or...
It's 12% for the
Okay.
first 2 years for fiscal year 26 and 27.
And how much does that equate to?
So it was seeded with $300 million, so it equates to up to $36 million for FY 26.
And that, if you could bring to the work group that where that $36 million has gone, if it has gone out this year. So, and if it is not going out this year, does it just go back to the seed fund? I'd like to have an outline of that, what that means, where it's going, what happened, how it happened, because I still think that we have significant problems. And then we did do TriShare. Now, TriShare, I think that's what it's currently called,
Yes.
was for one company, right? One company is participating?
So we currently have 3 employers participating.
And they are?
Electric Boat.
Yep.
One moment.
And they have 21,000 employees, give or take.
Correct. So we're currently serving 125 employees total in the program across the
125
3.
families.
Correct. Across
Yep.
the 3 programs, yes.
And they may have more than 125 children.
It's 126 children.
126
Yes.
children. Oh, nobody's having big families anymore.
No, they're not.
And who are the other 2 employers?
Sure. If I can ask Jill Marini to come on screen, who oversees TriShare.
Absolutely. And I have an update. We are up to 5 employees. And let me just pull my email up that lists all of them.
Jill,
Yep.
if you could just introduce yourself so that we have it on the record. I'm sorry.
Nope, no problems. I am Jill Marini. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives from OEC. And we currently have 5 employers. 3 of them are childcare centers. 1 is Electric Boat, and they are in the process of signing an MOU with R&W Heating.
R&W Heating?
Yes, ma'am.
And how many, the three childcare centers, I'm confused. TriShare is their childcare centers, are we supporting their employees with childcare? How many people in those?
I will have to get back to you. I don't have that information on the tip of my fingers.
And R&W Heating, how big is that employer?
They're in the process of signing their MOU, so we don't have totals on them yet,
So,
but I can find out.
are any one of these, even if you added all four of them up together, are they, any of them, equivalent to Electric Boat?
No. Electric Boat currently is serving 90 children with 46 children on their wait list. The reason why they have a wait list is they have a specific amount of funding they don't want to exceed.
So we're not serving 126, we're serving 90 kids with,
No, so that's just for Electric Boat. Electric Boat has 90 children that they're serving.
yep. That's not what they said. So if it's 126 children, then it's 126 children. Four companies make up 36 children. One company makes up 90, right? Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And can you give us the location of where these other childcare?
All in New London County.
So nobody else in the state wants to take part of this program?
The TriShare legislation indicates that can only be used in New London County.
Oh.
Trying to grow the town, huh?
No. We got Electric Boat saying 7,000 employees each year. Some people say that that's a good thing that it's only in New London County. I think that we were targeted out to actually have a company participate. So a lot of the other companies are not interested in participating, so they didn't have any other large employers that wanted to participate in this. So I think they were pointed out to get a large company participating. So relative to those are my two questions to the working group. I'd like an understanding on what expenditures have happened out of the child care and where we stand on that. Representative Walker.
Thank you, and good morning. Had to look up. My question is on Care for Kids. Care for Kids had a. I see you have addressed it, and I haven't had a chance to look at your numbers and everything, but I know we had shut down our Care for Kids access back in the spring.
I'm sorry.
We shut down and created the wait list starting in, I think last spring. I think it was March when we first started the wait list. How many people are on the wait list right now for Care for Kids?
Sure. So Care for Kids is a federal funding stream that the state also provides investment into to support families of a certain income and who are working or in higher ed or other programs to be able to receive a certificate where they can then use that to go find childcare and help that be more affordable for them. We have not shut down the Care for Kids program. We have in the past and learned that that is not the best strategy to use because it is very difficult. What we have done is we're able to slow down the ability for families to come off the wait list. So currently we have three. Sure.
So we haven't stopped it exactly, but we're just not taking them out quickly? That's what you're saying?
Exactly. So in the past, we've literally closed the Care for Kids program. So shut it down and no families were able to come on or come off the program. What we do now is that we manage enrollment and we're able to do that at different speeds to be able to manage within the budget allocations that we have. And so currently, we have on the wait list 3,844 children. I want to talk about the changes that have been made and improvements that have been made over to the Care for Kids system over the past several years that have benefited both providers and families. This program has gone through a tremendous amount of change and improvement. And I will say that the
Can I
wait.
just say, most of your programs have gone through change and.
Correct.
Okay, so.
Yes.
So
We
that,
are
that's
in
the
quite a
nature
bit
of
of-
OEC, okay.
Yes, yes. I will say that we are over 2,400 children down on the wait list since December, right? So one thing that the Office of Early Childhood does and is really important to us is making sure that we're constantly listening to the field, to providers and to families. And as this bubbled up, right, these challenges with Care for Kids and the wait list, we really looked at two strategies to take to help reduce the stressors, right, that families and providers are facing. One is to really maximize our budget and our dollars and to make sure that we're able to move families off of the wait list and pushing our budget to the maximum. The additional strategy is looking at our systems and the way in which our program actually functions so that when we are able to have families come off the wait list, it is a quick process for them to access their certificate, get into care, and get into affordable care. So we're taking two strategies to help mitigate some of the stressors that families and providers are facing. Over the last couple of years, Care for Kids, we have increased the base rates 3 times for providers. We have also extended eligibility for 12 months to ensure continuous care for families. So when a new child comes on in that family, we align the time frame of 12 months so that family only has to, have one deadline or one time frame in mind. We've also reduced the family fees to cap it at 7% of a family's income and have a graduated phase out, which mitigates some of the cliff effects that some families face, right? So as they go for redetermination, maybe they've gotten a raise, right? So we've moved that from 65% of the state median income up to 85%, so they can stay on the program and continue to access even as their income might increase. So there have been a lot of changes and improvements to the system, which I think, are variables as we look at the whole Care for Kids system.
I appreciate your answer. I agree that you have changed a lot of things in OEC, which it probably has been to the benefit. I think what it has done in a lot of ways, because I know I'm confused all the time about what the numbers are, not how many we're serving. Let me be clear. How many we're serving, because no matter what, the number, the population of our children at that age has been consistent pretty much for the last maybe 5 years. I mean, it's, goes up and down, but it's been pretty consistent for the number of kids that we're serving.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the numbers that we are serving, whether it be from birth to toddler, toddler to care. I'd like to get in the working group, maybe the last couple of years. I can do the population to the data and find out how many the ages are, but I want to know how many we serve. So
Sure.
I would like that in the working group because it'll take a long time. But I'd like to have it broken down by the different age categories that we're doing. And then I'd also like to know I know we have deserts and things like that, and I'm sure that you guys have focused on it. I'd like to know where you guys have identified deserts and how you are addressing those deserts in those areas of the state, because God knows, I know Eastern Connecticut has nothing. So I just hear that all the time. So.
She ain't lying.
Yeah, I know. So I would just like to see
Sure.
how are we looking at the needs for the people in our state. And I also know that you guys have raised the rates that you are paying the providers, which I appreciate, because that is something. But I think we sometimes we have to make sure that we do the providers equally with the number of kids we serve, so that we get that continuation. So if you could bring those numbers to the working group, that would be really good for me. And then explain how much money you have put in those pockets. Okay, I'm making a graph, and I don't mean to make it complicated.
No,
It's just numbers.
and I have some high level, but I will bring the more detailed information that you just asked. But for Care for Kids specifically, for just some historical.
No, look, I'd like your early start, because I'm still trying to understand who early start gets.
Yep.
And then there's the pre-K. That you're paying for too. Also, you're going the gamut. I'd like to know how are we doing in the development there and
Sure.
and stuff like that. And the other final thing would be a question of the curricula that we're using for this. Are we training the providers, and whose curricula are you using? You don't have to answer. You can just bring those to the working group.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Will do.
Representative Nuccio.
Thank you. I have a question that I think is probably also best for the working group, and that is regarding the 3-tiered rates now for birth to 3. If you could just kind of bring what that looks like now with the tiers compared to what it was before, I'd like to understand that. And then in regard to your line items that you have in the budget here, if you could bring just a high-level explanation of what those programs are, who they're serving, and if they're using any kind of metrics on those. And then breaking out OE into we're basically asking everybody to kind of look at their OE and tell us exactly what's in there. You can chunk it, but like exactly what's in there. If you can bring all of that to the working group, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Senator McCrory.
More of a comment. The resource we put up, the $300 million, was to cover, from my understanding, early childhood education, and also child care. Are we monitoring, making sure we got a healthy balance where these resources are going to fund programs in early childhood education and child care? Do we have a healthy balance? That's my question.
Thank you for that question. Many times we use those words interchangeably, right? Because we know that all experiences that young children have are learning experiences, and we know that families need care in order to be able to go to work, and so it's an economic driver as well. And so I think what sets Connecticut apart as a leader nationally is that we really look at our whole system as primarily a birth to 5 system, right? And so we know how important the early years are, especially the first 1,000 days of life, right, for brain development, and to ensure that quality, safety, and learning is sustainable throughout until they go into the public schools or their next venture. And so we do focus on ensuring that we are meeting the demands of families where they need it most, right? We know that infant and toddler care is of high demand just across the board. With the endowment, there is language that ensures that at least 35% of the new spaces go towards infant and toddler care starting next fiscal year. I will say that we know that that's where the demand is, and we have no problem meeting that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Leeper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, for this. And as you know, I'm very worried about what's happening in birth to 3, and so happy to see more resources going to birth to 3. And I'm just wondering if you could share sort of like a timeline for the tiered rate and who would be eligible for additional increases for reimbursement, and what it might look like over time before everyone can get an increased rate.
Great, thank you for that question. I'd actually like to invite up Nicole Cassette, our Birth to 3 Director, to help provide some of these details. As she gets settled, I'll just say a really important point as we potentially transition, right, into a tiered rate that we are constantly speaking with and working with providers and families. That is of utmost importance to myself and to the agency so that we keep all the, issues at the forefront and support.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Nicole Cassette. I am the current Birth to 3 Director for the state of Connecticut. And in terms of the tiered rate, currently we have 2 tiers. We have a professional rate and a paraprofessional rate. The professional rate is currently $120 per hour, and paraprofessionals are $84 per hour. Through a comprehensive rate study cost analysis, we looked at with a consultant the time and effort that goes into early intervention services. Our current rates don't include all of the necessary items such as time that includes visit notes or evaluation reports, etc. That rate study proposed a couple of different options that includes some of that information and some of that non-billable time into some of these additional rates that we would pursue forward with. In terms of the additional tiers, we would move into a 5-tiered rate approach as outlined in the comprehensive study, and that looks at an advanced professional, a professional with additional trainings, and then professional, and then there is the advanced paraprofessional and paraprofessional. In terms of how staff would obtain additional levels, we are still working with stakeholders to figure out what would fall under each tier and solidify that. We expect to have all of that complete over the next month or so that we can be ready to implement a tiered rate as close to 7-1 or on 7-1 as projected within the available appropriations. In terms of how someone would obtain those higher tiers in the timeline, that would be driven by the individual themselves, their ability to move through some of those trainings. So for example, service coordination would be something that we would consider in terms of moving along the different steps in the ladder, if you will. Service coordination is something that's outlined in IDEA. I can absolutely get folks more information about that if they're interested, but that training is comprehensive and it's part of modules and then an all-day-long training that folks would sit in on. That often we're seeing very new professionals who joined our field in that training, some as early as 2 weeks on the job, from my understanding. We do have some more seasoned staff. Those staff bring some really great feedback and situations that might occur in terms of that service coordination, but that is one example where we see a couple of different timelines in which folks would join. We also have an early intervention service credential. That is a self-paced. We have a module, we have additional trainings, and then there is an exam that folks would sit in on. And if they pass the exam, they would move on to observations. It's built with rigor, and we really want to ensure evidence-based practices are really implemented as part of that credential. That would be that highest level evidence-based practices in which the agency would see and would like to see from our professionals. We have folks that have already gone through the credential, and that is various times. I can get the specific information for you if you're interested, but some are moving through it quickly, and then others are taking a little bit more time with the study guides and other resources. We also have a cadre of folks that are part of that work so that we can move people through. I know one of the concerns we've heard is does the agency have the ability to help and support the field in moving through some of the trainings and credentialing processes. And we are looking at cadres so that it's both OEC and the field supporting staff through that, so there aren't barriers in terms of how quickly somebody could get through on our end.
Thank you for that. Do you have any estimate of like the percentage of our existing staff and where they fall in those tiers? If you've been in the field for 15 years, you aren't necessarily at the advanced professional, is that correct? Because these are already highly credentialed professionals, right?
Absolutely. So it depends on where the tiers end up falling and what credentials or training that individual would have. So somebody could potentially have entered early intervention, have not partaken in any of the trainings, and would have not been able to grow in that career ladder in terms of what that credentialing process would look like. But we also know that there are many that have gone through that. So it's highly likely. I can get you the estimates that is in the rate study in terms of who would fall under each tier. I don't have that readily available, but I can get that for the working session for sure.
That would be great. And then I guess just sort of the existing credentialing and whether or not, so if you have a master's degree or SLP, bilingual certified, like are you going to automatically be at the top tier or not? Like I would love sort of that. And I think probably the folks in the field would also love that. And then last question, thank you so much, Madam Chair.
You're on 4 now.
Do you have to pay?
Which you only get 2, so.
Do the professionals have to pay to work through these modules?
OEC supports the credentialing process. Now, there is a cost in terms of training, right, to our providers. So, for example, when somebody attends service coordination, they would, the provider's overhead, if in a fee for service, if you're not supporting families, they're not billing, so they're losing out on billable hours. We do supplement some of the trainings. We are looking for ways in which we can support the training. Evidence-based practices is something that we stand strongly on, and we really want to support the field in providing the highest quality of services. The actual interventionists or the program aren't paying to get the credentialing process done, if you will, or the certifications that we're offering, but there is a cost to the overhead of the program at times.
Thank you.
Representative Exum.
Just to follow up, good morning. Just to follow up, how many participants are there in the Birth to 3 program?
Participants or teachers?
Participants, families involved.
Families, yes, absolutely. We have that data. We often run a point in time for 12/1. That's what our federal reporting is looking at. So on 12/1/25, there were 7,953 children supported with an active IFSP. Now, when we think about supportive or being supported in our system, we have referrals, we have evaluations, eligibility, and then IFSPs. We like to look at the IFSP just to see what that service delivery looks like. On average, our referrals to the system are 1,000 per month, or just over 1,000 per month right now. That's a great increase from what we've seen a couple of years ago. In 2018, I remember sitting around a table and there were 800 referrals made in that month, and we were worried about the system in terms of how can we support at 800 referrals. We are through a pandemic and much further in, and we are at over 1,000. So we're seeing a great increase in terms of the number of children.
Which is interesting because when we talk about the increase in special education, I mean, some of this tracks, right? Some of the children who are identified through Birth to 3, it may be highly effective. I think Birth to 3 is a wonderful program, but a lot of times that means the children, as they go into school, they are identified, and it may track with some of what we heard earlier around the increase in special education numbers. So that's just interesting to note. So, and just, is there a wait list as well, or there's no wait list with Birth to 3?
No, currently there is no wait list. We are not allowed to have a wait list for the Birth to 3 program. So all families who are eligible or who are seeking services do receive them.
So how does that work if you are stretched with resources, but you're not allowed to have a wait list? Does it change the services that can be given to the current participants? Or is that the slowing? Yeah. Of that.
There is some slowing. So when we look at time from referral to evaluation, we are seeing some not delays in terms of the federal timeline. Federally, we have 45 days to implement an IFSP for a child who is eligible for our system upon their referral. So they are referred to our system, and we have 45 days to complete evaluations, assessments, and develop an IFSP. And then from there, there's 45 days to implement those services that are written into the IFSP. We are seeing some non-compliance in some of those indicators. Our compliance levels are 100%. So that's a federal law that we have to follow in terms of that 45-day timeline. If that is not met at 100%, we are non-compliant. But we are seeing some dips in those indicators as part of our federal reports. And we're seeing some slow in terms of the referral to evaluation when we look at the dates. Our programs are working extremely hard. They have raised this concern in terms of how stretched their They're using per diem staff, contractors to the best of their ability. There's providers who are taking a hit in terms of the cost because they're having to bring on additional folks into the system by way of contract. But we are doing our best in terms of the agency to support them and support how to ensure that all children and families' needs are met, and ensuring that we're using that primary service provider model to fidelity. So looking at one provider being that primary service provider for that family so that we can have this services move fluently through the process. In addition, looking at supporting through other stabilization payments and other things so that providers have some offset to some of that. But there is a stretch in terms of the ability to support families.
And final question, how about the impact on direct service hours? Is there an impact?
In terms of direct service hours, we have not seen a great decline in terms of number of hours being delivered to families across the board. On average, I believe it's about 5 hours per month written on the IFSP and then delivered subsequently. We can get those finalized numbers to you and get a trend for you as well. There has been a little bit of decline in terms of the number of hours for children who are diagnosed with autism. That is not directly due to workforce shortages. However, there's a lot of research that is supporting that it's not needed to have perhaps the level of hours that we had pre-pandemic. So we're following evidence-based practices and following the current research in terms of what is appropriate services for children. I could get you some more information related to that as well, but we are seeing some decline specifically within that. In terms of the number of hours. But again, there's a lot of research that's backing, and a lot of the nation is moving in a direction that is coaching as a style of interaction and really supporting parents and helping their child develop and learn.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I would like to hear more about that as a follow-up. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So we did a rate study on, OEC did a rate study. We didn't do it. You guys did it. On birth to 3. So the 2 questions relative to the this rate study. Does this budget meet the requirements of that rate study, and is there a plan to evergreen that rate study so that it would be up to today's standards, because it's several years old now, correct?
Correct. That rate study was completed in 2023. The OEC contracted with a national consultant who worked very closely with the field in order to determine the potential rates or the rate amounts. There were 2 recommendations, or options I should say, that were included in the rate study. One was the tiered approach, and the current with the budget adjustments do meet the full amount of the tiered approach cost. There was another option, right, that the rate study did identify, which would be to not implement the tiered rate, and that option is more costly.
And how much more would that be?
So currently with the tiers, it is $6 million for the Office of Early Childhood needed, and $4.5 million for the Department of Social Services. That's for tiers. For the non-tiered rate, it is $10.69 million for the Office of Early Childhood, and approximately $8 million for DSS.
Thank you. Representative Walker.
Thank you. A couple of questions. First of all, I think probably we're talking about the same thing, the rate study that you did. To fully fund your program, the child care program right now to the 2027 rates, approximately how much money would that be? And how many kids would that be? If you don't know it, you could bring it to the working group, but I'd like to know what that would be.
Sure, Representative. Can I just ask a clarifying question? Sure. Is that rates for our child care state-funded spaces or rates for our birth to 3 early intervention.
For your childcare spaces?
Childcare.
Both, all of the above?
Sure, okay, we will bring that information.
And also, I was looking at your budget. You've done a great job. You've expanded a lot. Since '24, you've gone up about 130 million. And I would like to know from '24 to '27, maybe that was what I was trying to get at in my first question. What were the expansion in the universe of kids that you were serving? So where are these? I know that some of them are new, but still we're paying for them. So I'd like to know what are we doing as far as that is concerned. I don't need the mapping on that. I just need the numbers of kids and, again, the categories. That's really critical because I just don't quite understand how we do it. So the difference, and I noticed that they moved the monies from Nurturing Families Network to the Connecticut Home Visiting System. They're the same?
Nurturing Families Network was kind of some historical language or older language that was used. So this is really a technical change in the naming of it. We now call it our home visiting system.
So it is Nurturing Families.
Yeah, I'd like to call up Ashley McAuliffe to just give some historical information here.
I know one thing, Nurturing Families originated in Connecticut. That was something that we started, and when I saw that we renamed it, it was something that nationwide people were picking up. So I didn't understand why we renamed it and everything. So, yeah.
Sure. Hi, good morning. Ashley McAuliffe. I'm the Family
Hi,
Support Division Director with OEC. So historically, yes, it was named Nurturing Families Network, and it had been named that for quite some time. Previously, in our past RFP, we did quite a few changes to the system to try to identify who we are as the Connecticut Home Visiting System, and part of that was submitting for this name change. So it really is just a name change to pull together our Connecticut providers in the home visiting space, and all the services are going to stay exactly the same.
I just think that sometimes when we name change, it confuses the people we're serving because they're going to look for Nurturing Families and they see, oh, there's no more Nurturing Families, there's only the Connecticut Home Visiting. And so it might turn people away, but I mean, I'd like to rename ECS. What will that do? So but I mean, I'm not being flippant. I'm serious. I just,
Absolutely.
because of the fact that, again, we got to remember, this is a fishbowl here. Out there is where we really should be marketing. And so we have to be cognizant of how well we explain what we're doing so that people know where they get their services and things like that. And Connecticut sometimes sort of confuses that to a lot of people because we have like mental health for children up to 18 and DCF, but then when they're 18 and a day, they go to DEMIS. But I mean, so there's not a continuum of care for people, and it becomes very frustrating. Plus, we move agencies like that. So I just would like to understand that a little bit better on how are the services identical for Nurturing Families and Connecticut Home Visiting, and what is the difference? Because I'm sure there's differences in there, but that I would like to have in writing so that I can explain to my constituents. Okay.
Yep, sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Representative Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your work and presentation. Just to follow up on Representative Walker's remarks, once we did do Birth to 3 and Developmental Disabilities Task Force that helped create the transitioning and extended the time for the students at both ends of the time frame for oversight. I wondered, are we in a situation now where the schools, once the child is transitioned into the public school system, are they following up with the same kind of oversight and care that was provided at the level for early childhood?
Thank you for that question. We work very closely and greatly appreciate the partnership with the State Department of Education, and we do a lot of work together around focusing on transition for families. It is a different program. Our Birth to 3 is funded under Part C, right, of the federal government, which includes specific rules that apply to the birth to 3 population. The State Department of Education operates under the Part B piece, which is a different set of rules. But we work together with them as closely as possible to assist with the transition as children enter into the preschool special ed.
Just to follow up quickly, so the fact is some districts do follow up more closely with early childhood oversight than others, and I just wondered if that had changed any over the last few years.
Okay. I'm going to ask Nicole to add a little bit more detail here.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you.
In terms of transition, I work very closely with my counterpart, Renee Kleinman, at the State Department of Education around transition. We reach out to programs and LEAs, or the local education agencies, and provide training and technical assistance to those programs and LEAs to ensure that children are not being dropped through the transition process. We do share data with the State Department of Education to ensure that we are meeting our timelines and goals as part of IDEA. In terms of follow-up, I think you were referencing some of the work that was completed a couple of years ago that led to the early intervention services over 3. As part of that work, if children are ineligible, there was also legislation passed that year where birth to 3 providers will connect families with an app, or currently that is Sparkler for developmental monitoring, and the LEAs have a responsibility to reach out to families. I believe I will correct myself in the working group if I'm providing inaccurate information, but 6 and 12 months after that, the LEAs will follow up with those families. In terms of how that connects families, we are seeing that there is greater outreach. I'm happy to collaborate a little bit more in terms of the Part B side of things, as Commissioner Truworthy referenced, in terms of what is within our scope and out of our scope, but we are seeing smoother transition processes over the last couple of years. There's a lot of work going on in outreach, so if we are identifying noncompliance on either side, there is follow-up from the State Department of Ed or the birth to 3 system in terms of ensuring that our timelines are met and adhered to so that families have smooth and effective transitions through the 2 systems.
Thank you so much for that, and I'd love to see that in writing in the working group. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any? Yes, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for the work that you and your staff do. Just bring up a quick example from New Brighton, because I think it might illustrate maybe a broader potential challenge going forward. Our local YMCA received almost $2 million in state money to convert space into early childhood classrooms, and the classrooms are for several months now not been utilized, and have not had any students being able to go in there. And so I think one of the things that we have to be aware of as we try to expand early childhood options and availability to more people throughout the state is to be able to try to streamline the process so we can get these classrooms online as fast as possible. Are there ideas or things that you can think of that might be able to make the process faster to bring these classrooms online?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question and illustrating that example. There's a couple of things in there. And one is every time we expand, we get a significant demand for childcare spaces that are state funded. We're on average able, the last 2 times through our request for applications, fund about 10 to 15% of the total applications that were asked of us. And so you can see the difference there. We would love to fund everyone, but are doing it in intentional and as our resources allow. What you're bringing up specifically, though, is the opportunities when communities have new facility infrastructure and builds. We were so fortunate this past legislative session to have a bond bill support the addition for resources for facility construction and renovation. So we are doing our kind of due diligence and thinking around how do we align when opportunities arise for new childcare state-funded spaces, to align that with who's doing a new build, when are those builds opening, and how is that working. Also working in partnership with our other state agencies, you know, to, such as the Community Investment Fund, right, to align some of those pieces as well. And so, yes, we are doing some thinking around that. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Commissioner.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing nobody? You're all set, Commissioner. Thank you. Up next, we have the State Library. Deborah, are you here?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Deborah Schonder, the State Librarian. There are 3 proposals related to the State Library's budget before you this year. One is related to the legislatively directed funds, both transferring those to administrative different SIDs, as well as the proposed 20% cuts that we've seen to all agencies. Next is a proposed increase to our utilities costs, about $83,000, to further support the increased costs for utilities across our 4 facilities in the state. And then finally, there's a proposed cut to the Borrow It program, which is an interlibrary loan reimbursement program to public libraries for 20% of that reimbursement cost. So I would be happy to answer your questions this morning.
Thank you. So, a couple things. Last year, we passed a bill that had to do with setting up some sort of program or policies on how libraries had to sign off on different things. So it was, and I got more complaints about the way it was handled than any other thing that we have ever done. Of all of the programs that we do in the state, that program and how it was handled by the State Library was ridiculous, in my opinion. I had people that were passing the rules. First of all, it had to be done in such a tight time frame. And most libraries take the summer off because, in particular in small communities, and they had to come back and try to do some work associated with coming up with these rules on how they were doing things. And then some of them already had done a lot of the work, and they submitted those rules, and they were told no. It has to be exactly prescriptive. And I don't recall in the legislation that we wrote out how it had to be done. So I don't know why people couldn't come up with their own rules that came up with a considerable resolution to what we were trying to do there. And on top of that, then we were told that if they didn't come up with exactly prescriptive language, I mean, in so much as if a comma was in the wrong spot, they got it sent back, that not only could they not get a grant from the state, they were not going to get any federal money or anything else that came by for libraries. They had to come up with a prescriptive thing. Again, I'm really quite amazed that on what happened there. Can you tell me why we did that to our libraries, which I know most of my libraries are not full-time libraries. They're small, and the language was just ridiculous. Why did you come up with a policy? Because I looked at the bill. I didn't see us detail the exact language that was going to be used. Why did you come up with that? Because I've never seen it happen before. ever.
Thank you very much for that. Just as a reminder to everybody, this was a bill that the General Assembly passed last year. This was not a state library initiated piece of legislation.
Right.
But this was a bill that a number of legislators proposed to require public libraries to develop various policies related to collection development, weeding, reconsideration, as well as public programming and presentations. And so most libraries have, many libraries have policies like this. It is related to the professional development and work that a library considers when it's making decisions about what goes into its collections, its presentations, when they remove books from a collection, when books are added to a collection. And this is typically something that is done by a group of people within the library. Those are not decisions made by one person, and they are policies that are approved by the board or its other governing body. And so this piece of legislation that the General Assembly passed last year did require every library to have these various policies. Some of them already did have policies that were fully or partially in compliance. Many did not. And so this required them to develop those policies and to have them in place in order to receive the incentive grants that that the General Assembly passes through the state library as well, which is about $1,400 a year per library. And so the state library, because we are the agency that's responsible for ensuring that libraries do comply with the requirements to receive the incentive grants, we did share information about these new requirements out to public libraries. And we pulled together a group of representatives from within the state, both library directors, practitioners, members of the state library staff, to put together messaging related to this. We also put together model policies and language, so looking at some of the really outstanding examples from some of the Connecticut public libraries to share out with others. As you mentioned, we have quite a number of libraries in the states that have very small staffs or unpaid staff or limited hours, and so we were trying to be as helpful as possible to provide them with this sample language that they could use that would be in compliance with the legislation that was passed by the General Assembly. And so we did review those, and we did ensure that the language was in check with the language of the statutes. But that was the responses we were getting in order to ensure that those libraries would receive the incentive grants that are connected with that piece of legislation. So it was something that was quite a significant impact, or an initiative. The deadlines were actually related to the statutory language in both, I believe, the bill itself and then the language that we are required to then share out the funding. And so we worked back from those deadlines that were within statute to ensure that libraries would be in compliance in order to receive their funds on time this fiscal year.
But we didn't tie it to any other funding but that one grant.
That is correct.
But that's not what was put out to the libraries. I saw things that came from your office in writing that said that all grants would be denied from them, that they would not be able to apply for any grant. And that's not what the legislation said.
We did get a couple of questions about that and clarified, but it was specifically related to the incentive grants.
But you made it apply to all grants for people.
We had some questions that people had that thought, but we did clarify with those who reached out to us, and we sent out quite a lot of communications to libraries about it.
Well, I found it to be very heavy-handed, not collaborative at all, and very, very difficult for people to comply with. And there were people that were stricter, and you wouldn't allow them to have their voice at all in any of the writing, that it had to be exactly the same, library to library to library. And that's not what the legislation said. We didn't say that. We didn't say library A has to be exactly the same as library Z. We allowed the libraries to have some work together. So I found it to be, it made me want to come back and take that policy and just get rid of it completely, because it was so heavy-handed, in particular in my district, which is all small communities. I found it to be unnecessary, not helpful at all, and made it very difficult for them to actually function as libraries. And So I'm gonna go back to them and tell them that they can get other grants even if they didn't pass that policy. Because they told me they were told that there was no way that they would get any other grants if they didn't pass that policy.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We always appreciate hearing the feedback, and I think the team that was working on this made themselves available to answer many questions.
I
So
found that not to be true. I found that not to be true. I found the way that it was handled by the state library to be unnecessary and fully fully heavy-handed. The Borrow It CT program with a 20% cut. This program is very important to the libraries broadly. What is the impact of cutting 20% of this program?
Thank you very much for that question. So Borrow It is a program that reimburses local libraries for lending physical materials to non-residents. So Connecticut has a very unique system in which anyone who has a library card in Connecticut can go to any other public library and borrow materials for free. This is a fairly rare and unique thing, and I think is one of the jewels in Connecticut's library ecosystem. And so what we see is about 2.5 million items that were loaned in last fiscal year from one local library to residents of another local library. And it actually, even though the state funds approximately $700,000 in those reimbursements at this point, it would cost the state of Connecticut it would cost residents about $38 million to replicate the collections and materials that are loaned if each library had to retain those collections themselves. And it's about 11% of the circulation that we see across the state. So a couple of the ramifications if that funding was cut is some libraries may choose to not participate in this. It's a reciprocal borrowing program. And so we might see libraries that are choosing to charge non-residents to borrow materials, for example. We also would anticipate seeing an increase in the delivery service. So in addition to residents being able to visit a local library and pick up a material, they're also able to request them, and the state library delivers those materials between libraries. So we would anticipate a significant increase in requests that would be moving through the delivery system. And we also just may see a general lack of access to materials across the state as libraries decide to not participate in this ecosystem. So I think that it could have a variety of impacts on residents across the state in each of our communities.
Thank you. Representative Nuccio.
Thank you. In follow-up to that question, I noticed, besides just the cut, it says that the money that you do have there, which is regularly about $700,000, does not cover the cost of the delivery service. Do you have an estimate of how much that delivery service costs? And is that just taken out of regular town library funds then?
I don't have the full cost off the top of my head, but I can bring that to the working group. Much of the delivery service is actually funded with our federal dollars through the Institute of Museum and Library Services. We receive about $2.16 million from them currently, and we place the maximum amount of support that we can on that program. So it's about a quarter of our funds support the delivery service. In our budget, you'll also see an interlibrary loan line that supports half of the staff for the delivery service, but I can get you the total cost for the delivery.
Okay. And then the only other question that I have is I've been asking everybody, well, Tony dropped off, I'm asking now. The OE, if you can please provide a breakdown of everything that is in your OE.
Sure.
And then all of the line items that you have here, the separate line items, if you could just provide a high level, what is that program, who is it serving, and what kind of metrics you're using to judge the effectiveness of it to the work group, I would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. I do have some of the OE information with me today, but I'd be happy to bring it to the work group.
I would bring it to the work group. Thank you.
Anybody have anything else? You're all set.
Thank you so much.
Up next, we have CTEC. We're a little early, not too much early though. Come on up.
No, not at all.
Dr. Pritchard, if you would like to give us
good
a little
morning.
bit of an overview.
Okay, I'll be very brief. Good morning, everyone. Representatives, senators, wonderful to be in front of you today. As you may know, my name is Dr. Alice Pritchard. I'm the Executive Director of CTEX. I'm joined today by a few of our team, but we won't, we'll engage more of them at the subcommittee level than we will today. And I just wanted to quickly run through, my testimony is in front of you, tells you the CTEX background, which you need to know, but just wanted to call out that the governor's proposal does increase our budget by about $7.6 million. $5 million of that is to cover deficiency, which we are running again this year. Happy to talk to you all about that. But there are also some expansion options in there, which we are excited about. First is an opportunity to expand some of our adult ed offerings. And the second is to begin a process of bringing paraeducators onto our staff to start to lessen our dependency on contracted services. So we're confident that this is going to help CTEX continue to grow and to stabilize, and look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. So a couple of questions relative to the services that CTEC does relative to the manufacturing pipeline.
Sure.
And what you're doing. You have some after school activity that happens relative to the manufacturing pipeline.
I
Yes?
can, Senator, I'd be happy to get you more details about that. I don't have it at my fingertips, but we are certainly working with the manufacturing pipeline with both youth and adults. Electric Boat is actually very deeply committed to work with Grosso Tech, but they are also actually going to expand to Cheney Tech. They're going to move further west to continue to try to find more individuals eligible to come and work for them. So we are hoping this summer to stand up a program with them at Cheney Tech in Manchester, and then continue the work that we're doing at Grosso and Norwich, and to the degree we're doing it also up with Ellis and Danielson. So certainly can bring you more information on our engagement in that way, but we are deeply involved with Electric Boat and appreciate all of their support.
Thank you. And the special education, does this budget stabilize special education costs, not only with different programming, but with the staff relative to paraprofessionals?
So this is a wonderful opportunity for us to start to bring on paraprofessionals. Because we are a state agency and a school district, we have to do things a little differently. So we will have to establish a classification for paraeducators, which does not exist in the state system at the moment, but we will do that and hire probably the first wave of individuals. So hoping that we could get about 25 to 35 paraeducators in as kind of our first wave. We would still have the need for contracted services. Otherwise, we'd probably need to go to like 90 at one time, which would be a lot for us to manage. So anticipating we could do that over the next 2 to 3 years to bring on that. So that will be incredibly helpful. I'm excited that we can bring those on, and then we will also have them on the track to become teachers if they want to through the apprenticeship program that's been built with the State Department of Ed and Department of Labor. We will still need to do contracted services both at the beginning for paraeducators, but also for the professionals that we hire as well through, or that are hired through CREC. We do nurses, we do behaviorists, et cetera, and we don't have those individuals on staff. We do hire right now school psychologists, school social workers, and obviously our own teachers, but this will start to build out that workforce. So very excited about that.
So these 36 paraprofessionals only cover about a third of what you actually need?
Yes.
And when will they be starting on September 1 next year?
That's our goal. We're beginning that process now in
Okay.
hopes that this happens, and so we've started the classification process and made the union aware that would be, teachers union aware that that's something we would be discussing with them in the future.
Thank you. Representative Nuccio.
Thank you. In regard to the special education paraprofessionals, is this the most cost-effective way to bring them on as state employees rather than contracting for them?
I'm not sure I would say it's the most cost-effective way. It's probably the best way to make sure they're integrated into the service delivery that's provided to students so that they can be part of the workforce. Our teachers are being asked to, support kids in their trade classrooms. The paraeducators can come in and help do some of that. So we think that there's a stronger service commitment if we can bring them onto the workforce. At the same time, do recognize that those professionals I was speaking of are probably best suited to a contracted service. They're higher priced individuals to engage in services, and I think we would leave them as a contracted service because you don't need them every minute of the day in the same way that you need the paraeducators.
Are these contracted services currently in your OE?
Yes, they are. And
Okay, so
yes.
I would expect to see if you're bringing on 36 full-time employees that your contracted services numbers would come down.
I believe they will over time. They won't in the instant probably because we have not been able to hire all that we would need to fulfill the IEPs at this point. So we do see that at first there may not be that kind of immediate dip that you'd be looking for, but over time there certainly would be.
Okay, in relation to your deficiency, the $5 million deficiency, can you please bring in detail what that is?
Yep.
To the work group meeting? And if you could please break out all of your other expenses into actually what they are. You've got a pretty large number there, and I'd like to understand what all the moving pieces are. And then the last, if I may, the last question that I really have is in regard to your adult education, the $1 million in OE, if you can explain what that is also.
Okay. At subcommittee, happy to bring that?
That's
or if
fine,
you-
yep.
Okay.
All set?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Exum.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank
Hi.
you.
I would just like to know, will all of the paras come through CREC, or will they be contracted in lots of different ways? How does that piece work?
At the moment, we have been contracting exclusively with CREC and to provide that service. And again, I think once we start to it may make some good sense to leave the workforce where they are now with CREC and continue to use them as our primary provider. They've indicated that there are other RESC in the state that have, some interest in serving our needs as well. And so I think to Representative Nuccio's point, though, I don't know that we want to have 6 contracts to manage a very small number of people. So it still may make sense to see if they would do it as an alliance, et cetera. But there may be reason to engage other RESC, but for the purpose of kind of stabilizing and moving on to our own workforce, it may make sense to stay. CREC has been a good partner in providing services to our special ed students.
And I was curious too, if they all come from CREC, how does that impact on their side of things? But you've been using them all along.
Correct.
Anyway, yeah.
Yes.
You just hope to have an in-home program, which I think makes a lot of sense. What was the other question? I think that's all I'm going to ask for now. You've
Okay.
answered the rest of them. Thank you.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Just curious if you could bring to the working group information regarding what the tech schools provide in terms of educational opportunities. So some provide manufacturing, others provide things for health and beauty assistance. So that information, and if you have the ability to break out the cost, that would be really good. And so that, I think, is pretty much one other quick question, I think, is I know that in some circumstances tech schools actually do provide work to the community, for example, and if you had any of those types of that information, what's going on with that particular aspect of tech schools, much appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think you may be speaking about our student workforce that does
Yes.
production work in the community. Okay.
I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you.
Representative Leeper.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for being with us and all of the good work our technical high schools are doing. You mentioned your partnership with Expanding Adult Ed. Is that an initiative to utilize our facilities after traditional school hours? And is it only for adult ed? Is it for anybody in comprehensive high schools who are looking for a pathway into the trades? If you could share a little more detail on that initiative, I'd love to hear.
Absolutely. We're convinced that we do need, as you know, to use our buildings for more hours in the day. They're amazing facilities, and there's lots of good equipment there and others that we should use beyond 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And to some degree that does happen now. We have 7 schools that provide adult ed currently. Ultimately, I think we would like to do more of the after-school for the high school age students. I think this particular proposal starts to build out for the adult learner, which could be an 18-year-old who has a high school diploma, certainly. So I think we would start with this pot of, about $1 million to expand the adult ed offerings, but certainly think that the after-school is a piece we'd also really like to do, because we know that last year we had 8,000 applicants for about 3,500 spots in our high school programs, and so I don't think you're going to be able to fund us at that scale for the high school program, but we could be doing after school. We could be giving them stuff, again, additional skill building during the afternoon hours for those comprehensive high school students who don't get to us, unfortunately.
I just want to say thanks. As we're seeing our young people increasingly disconnected, what you guys are offering is obviously driving them, and we love to see that sort of connection and drive. So I look forward to ongoing conversation about how we can continue to facilitate that. Thanks.
That's not what they asked about. Anybody else? Representative Walker?
Yes. Hi, how you doing? Good to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Representative.
You expanding your, I guess Melissa, I'm sorry if I, but expanding the adult education program just in Bristol?
No, we would certainly like to expand to Bristol, but these resources will allow us to go to many other places, including Whitney, where we already are offering adult ed programming at this time. So we would be able to do more of that work, in addition to the aero maintenance programs that we operate at Brainerd and at Stratford. So the resources would stretch beyond Bristol, but certainly would love to be using Bristol in that way too.
Okay. I wasn't, and then the expand special education instructional capacity. Explain that to me.
So we are making a proposal to start to bring paraeducators onto the CTEX workforce, to start to diminish our reliance on the contracted services. It will be a process. It'll take us a little while. We have to do a classification and establish the position as a state position. And then we will, over time, we think within 3 years, we'd be able to move the entire paraeducator workforce onto the CTEX team, and then continue to use outside services for some of the more professional services that you don't need every minute of every day, and that are really very specialized. So we would still have some contracted services, but not to the degree that we've had to do over the last several years.
Why do you think you had such an explosion in special ed?
Because we went to a lottery process that allows more students to apply and to get into the program. I think it's also just the nature of education now, and that we're catching up. But we have caught up with the state average over the last several years, and now have 18% just as the regular public schools do. So I think it was really opening our doors and getting away from some of the practices of the past, which may have made it more difficult for those students to get in.
We had, yes, and I appreciate everything you've done. I really do, because we had so many people that were very disappointed in not getting into that was always. And Eli Whitney, how is it doing?
It's Eli Whitney is doing well. It's a busy school. We have an interim principal there this year. We'll do a search soon to put a permanent principal in for the next school year, but Eli's doing well.
It's doing well? Okay. Are you working with the New Haven or Hamden Boards of Ed directly?
We have not been. Our new superintendent, Mike Crocco, came from the New Haven Public Schools, so has great connections there. And again, as he's just started in May, and but that is one of the schools that he supports particularly. So I'll make sure that he is making those connections.
Okay.
Yep.
I see sometimes, because I live just about 2 blocks away, and I walk all the way around it with my dog, and sometimes it's full, and then sometimes it's not.
Yep.
And so the inconsistency I get concerned about. The only other thing that is the automotive program at Eli Whitney, then there's an automotive program at Hill House, and then there's an automotive program at Gateway. I think somehow we can blend that. I don't know how, because there's no space anywhere, but I mean, I think they could benefit from each other. So I'd like to try and talk about that in the springtime, to see how, because Gateway's desperately looking for a place to go, because they need to get out so ACES can take over that building. So they need to get out of it, and they've got businesses that want to hire their students. So we've got something we can't let go. And
Absolutely. No, we would be happy to talk about that. And we do have a couple of models where the community colleges offer programming on our sites in the afternoons and evenings, and maybe that's something that could be explored.
Okay.
The other thing I will just mention is that Whitney is going to house or host, the NAACP is doing work in the area with Yale New Haven, and they're going to offer their kind of pre-training program, excuse me, 4 days a week at our school. So that'll also bring some more adults in and have them see those adult offerings that are available too. So those communicate connections are
Okay,
are
they're
there,
happening. They're
definitely
happening.
there.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely.
Great job. Thank you.
Senator Kushner?
Thank you. It's great to see you here. I was appreciative of Representative Walker's questions about the tech schools in her community, because I too have some questions about Abbott Tech. There has been some concerns about the lottery system, but I think it mostly comes from people who would like more opportunities to get into Abbott Tech, because it is such a good program and so highly regarded in our community. So I guess, I'm just hoping that there would be consideration given to expanding our existing schools where we can, to create more opportunity for our communities. It's a regional school, as you know, so we have a lot of kids coming from other communities. But I'm sure you know, there's a long waiting list, and it would be great to have more to build onto that program, build on structurally, and create more opportunities for the kids in our area. And I've heard only good things about the program.
That's great, Senator. And Abbott is one of those schools that has a lot of interest and limited spots. So thinking about what we can be doing after school certainly would be a good way to go. But yeah, and I would agree with you. I'm hearing lots from the lottery where people are frustrated that their second and third generation student who wanted to be in electrical isn't getting in, and we share that frustration. But I'm also very excited that we have first generation students who are coming in as well. So it's a good problem to have this much interest.
It is. I just hope we could try and address it by making more opportunities for these kids and having everybody have the opportunity.
Yeah, we'd
So
be
thank you.
happy to entertain that, for sure.
Thank you.
It's a good thing some of our comprehensive high schools are taking on some of the work that you used to do, making them back into work that was happening. Representative Nuccio?
Thank you. I actually have a follow-up question from a question that I've asked you for the last couple of years. So I just want to know, do you have an HVAC teacher at Wyndham Tech yet?
Yes, we do, and I'm actually going to be there this afternoon. But yes, we are staffed at Wyndham Tech. Again, as you know, that's been a concern there. But we do have that occasionally happen at other schools as well, where we lose the instructor and then it's hard to pull them from industry where they make really good salaries. But yes, we are staffed at Wyndham Tech.
And in regard to your adult learning program, I noticed you had on there that one of the programs you were offering was HVAC. Can the kids who did not get an HVAC education come back through adult education to actually get trained for what they need to?
Yes, I need to check on that one specifically. I know they can if they've gotten their high school diploma. I need to see if that we might need to be offering some after-school programming for high school specifically. And there are also some rules around how many hours they can be in school in a day or in a week that we would have to move around. But we would be very happy to talk about after-school programming for high school age students who did not get into the programs. And industry would like us to expand. I spend a lot of time with the Association of HVAC Providers, and they really would love us to double and triple our output of graduates. So we know the demand is there.
What I specifically mean there, I appreciate that, but what I specifically mean are the kids who graduated in the last 2 years from Wyndham Tech who did not have an HVAC teacher, who cannot get jobs in the industry because they don't know what they're doing.
Yes, they would absolutely be eligible to come to adult ed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry for the misunderstanding.
Representative Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to follow up on Representative Walker's question with regard to the auto mechanic industry and training, are we now statewide looking at the electronics of what the automobile industry has been doing with the so-called brain in the car and all the different types of electronics for regenerative braking and those kinds of things. And I just wondered where we are with respect to training in that area. And if you don't have the information now, bring it to the work group. But
Be happy to, but also I would just say our programs are up to date on, to the degree they can be on technology. Those program advisory committees that are required by statute. So they meet with business and industry and they tell them exactly what they need. I think what's funny is on the other side, they get a car that comes in for production, as you were asking, to have their oil changed or their brakes done, and they find a car that doesn't have the brains in it. They're much less likely to have practiced on those cars because those cars are becoming such a thing of the past. So people should donate old cars to our program so that they can, again, learn how to use, to fix the ones that are not. But absolutely up to date. Our schools are also starting to do things like emissions testing and other things where they can. So they're definitely staying up on the industry and getting really good work because of that. And one of your local employers hires some of our students for work-based learning, which is great.
thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else that has questions, so, hold on, I don't know what happened. Let me just look online. Nothing online either. So, you're all set? We do have, just for the audience, we do have 342 people that have signed up to testify tonight. We start at 3 o'clock. If you're a member of the committee, please talk to the administrator to sign up to take an hour. If everybody were to testify and they only took 3 minutes, it would be 17 hours, 17.1 hours. So just go see Taylor Aiken, sign up for an hour, and we'll see what we do. Okay?
And no questions.
Well, we never ask questions on them, just of these guys. All right. Thanks, guys. We're going to end the agency briefings.